true?
Well, I think number one, it is essentially true of most markets which is where you have probably greater volume and that you can negotiate better pricing. And in this market, my own direct experience again of sort of, building a group and combining purchasing, then you do get more advantageous terms. And that's around a couple of points which people misunderstand. One is it's about obviously if you're rolling up a number of businesses, it's trying to reduce the number of vendors that you have. So, if you have a number of different companies operating in different jurisdictions, chances are they'll all be buying different from different suppliers. So if you can kind of rationalize your supplier base, there clearly has to be some advantage around that aspect. Second element of that is most packaging companies nowadays that are any good have, again, when they will buy or roll up a number of companies, will engage in elements of raw material rationalization. So again, the broader and greater number of grades of polymers and variations and everything else that you have in your business profile, the less advantageous your pricing. And you may find, polymer A is called something, polymer B is called something else. The reality is they're actually the same polymer. So by engaging in a more scientific approach to that, you can reduce the number of polymer grades. And again, that's more advantageous to the vendor because he's having to, essentially not have to distill as many different recipes. And again, there is a pricing advantage related to that. So the point, though, where I get a little bit, I think it's a little bit misleading, is that I know when Pim talks about, we're going to do deals and we're going to continually reduce our polymer pricing, I don't believe he can any longer reduce the base level of RPC's pricing. What he can do is obviously for the incremental volume of the newly acquired company, he can most likely get the pricing of that incremental piece down to the base level of RPC. But he's not going to, suddenly get all of RPC's aggregate pricing any lower.
No, but the real question is when if you can, let's say 30%, 35% of your cost base is polymer, and you can buy that, even if it's a 10% discount, right? So that's a 3% drop to your bottom line, which is very significant if you've got a 10% business, right? So I'm just, is there a number, or do you think it's just much softer than that? It's very difficult to actually put a number on it because at the end of the day, it's a commodity, right? So and I've heard it so many times, but at the same time, I just find it difficult to believe. What you're saying, I find easier to believe that, you go to an INEOS or whatever it is you're buying from, and you say, look, we just bought this big business. We're going to reduce the amount of grades that we're going to kind of buy from you. And we're going to make it much easier to ship or whatever the hell it is. Yeah. And you get a benefit and we'll split it X ways, right? And then you actually have but I just don't know how meaningful that number is. And 10% to me is quite a big number.
10% is a big number. I think I suppose having sat on a number of sort of industry boards, one of the things I would try to always determine is what was the pricing advantage the biggest player in the market had as against the smaller players. And that is probably a way of answering your question. And I would have always, just from my own, I suppose, anecdotal evidence, would always have said that's probably somewhere in the region of 8 to 10%. So if that's a way of answering your question,
the largest guy versus the smallest guy, 10%, 8 to 10%.
Yeah. Now they are two extremes, so that means obviously the majority of the market is somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. That's fine. Okay. Now, kind of moving on to margins, and I guess there's some controversy as to how RPC accounts for margins and some of the things they do from an accounting perspective. But when you look at these businesses, once they have a certain amount of scale, what do you think kind of sustainable EBIT margins should be for these businesses, and what let's start there. Maybe do you have a sense for what it?